The alarm screamed through the cargo ship, making Jake Morrison jump from his seat. He rushed to the control panel, where Lisa Grant was already checking the sensors. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, her face tight with concern. "What is it?" Jake asked, leaning over her shoulder. "There's a ship out there," Lisa said, pointing at the display. "It's damaged badly. Life support is failing." Jake looked at the screen. The ship was spinning slowly in space, leaving a trail of frozen air behind it. Parts of the hull were torn open, and no lights were visible inside. It looked dead, but the sensors showed one life form still aboard. "Can you tell what kind of ship it is?" Jake asked. Lisa zoomed in on the image. "It's Zenthari design, one of their trader vessels." Jake felt his stomach tighten. The Zenthari were known throughout the galaxy as cold and calculating. They never helped anyone without a contract. They never showed mercy or kindness. Everything was business to them. But that didn't matter right now. Someone was dying out there. "Get us closer," Jake said. "Prepare the medical bay." Lisa turned to look at him. "Jake, we're already 3 days behind schedule. If we stop now, we'll lose the Harrison contract. That's 60,000 credits." "I know," Jake said quietly. "But we can't just leave someone to die." Lisa studied his face for a moment, then nodded. She knew Jake well enough to know he wouldn't change his mind. And honestly, she wouldn't want him to. She turned back to the controls and started moving their ship, the Frontier Spirit, toward the damaged vessel. 20 minutes later, Jake was in his spacesuit, floating through the airlock into the Zenthari ship. The inside was a mess. Equipment floated everywhere, and the walls were covered with ice. The temperature was far below freezing. He pulled himself through the narrow corridors, following his scanner toward the life sign. He found the Zenthari in what looked like a cargo hold. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. Its breathing was shallow, and one of its arms was bent at a wrong angle. Blood, dark purple in color, had frozen on its uniform. "Hey, can you hear me?" Jake said through his helmet speaker. The Zenthari's eyes opened slowly. It looked at Jake with confusion and fear. "I'm here to help," Jake said. "I'm going to get you out of here." The Zenthari tried to speak, but no sound came out. Jake carefully lifted the alien, surprised by how light it was. He pulled them both back through the corridor and into the airlock of his own ship. Lisa had the medical bay ready. She helped Jake get the Zenthari onto the examination table. Their ship's medical system wasn't designed for alien biology, but it was better than nothing. Lisa started running scans while Jake removed his helmet. "He's in bad shape," Lisa said, reading the results. "Broken bones, internal bleeding, and severe hypothermia. We need to use the advanced medical kit." Jake hesitated. The advanced medical kit contained supplies that cost a fortune. They only had one kit, saved for emergencies. Using it on a stranger meant they wouldn't have it if their own crew needed it. But looking at the dying Zenthari on the table, he knew there was no choice. "Use it," Jake said. For the next 6 hours, they worked to save the Zenthari's life. The alien drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes making sounds in its own language that neither Jake nor Lisa could understand. Finally, the medical system showed that the patient was stable. The Zenthari would live. Jake sat down heavily in a chair, exhausted. Lisa brought him coffee and sat beside him. "We missed the delivery window," she said softly. "Harrison already contracted with another ship. The money's gone." Jake nodded, too tired to feel the full weight of what that meant. 60,000 credits was a lot of money. It would have paid for ship repairs, new equipment, and covered their expenses for months. Now they would have to take smaller jobs, work harder, and hope something good came along. "Did I make the right choice?" Jake asked. Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. "You did what any decent person would do. You saved a life. That's always the right choice." HFY 4. 3 days later, the Zenthari was awake and recovering. His name was Vex Thor, and he spoke broken but understandable human language. He sat in the medical bay, staring at Jake and Lisa with his large black eyes. "Why did you save me?" Vex Thor asked. His voice was strange, like wind through metal pipes. "Because you needed help," Jake said simply, "but there was no contract between us. No agreement. No benefit to you." "That doesn't matter," Lisa said. "You were dying. We couldn't just leave you there." Vex Thor looked confused. "In my culture, one does not help without agreement. Without profit. This is not logical. You lost money to save me. You used expensive supplies. You gained nothing." Jake leaned back in his chair. "Maybe it's not logical to you, but it's what people do. At least, it's what humans do. We help each other. We look out for each other. That's just how we are." "But I am not human," Vex Thor said. "Doesn't matter," Jake replied. "You're a living being. That's enough." Vex Thor was quiet for a long time. He seemed to be thinking deeply about something. Finally, he spoke again. "I do not understand your species, but I am grateful. I owe you a debt." "You don't owe us anything," Lisa said. "Just get better. That's payment enough." But Vex Thor shook his head slowly. "Among my people, debts must be repaid. I will remember this." Jake stood up and smiled. "Well, if you really want to repay us, just pass it forward. Help someone else when they need it. That's how it works." Vex Thor looked even more confused at this idea, but he nodded slowly. Later that night, Jake stood alone in the control room, looking out at the stars. They were heading to the nearest space station, where they could drop off Vex Thor and hopefully find some work. Money was going to be tight for a while. But when he thought about leaving that damaged ship behind, about letting Vex Thor die alone in the cold and dark, he knew he couldn't have done it. Lisa came to stand beside him. "No regrets?" she asked. Jake shook his head. "No regrets. We did the right thing. That's why I fly with you, Captain," Lisa said with a smile. "You always do the right thing. Even when it's hard." Jake smiled back. "We do the right thing. We're a team." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars stream past. Neither of them knew that this simple act of kindness would change everything. Neither of them could imagine what would come from saving one alien's life. But that was okay. They hadn't done it for rewards or recognition. They had done it because it was right. And for humans, that was always enough. Vex Thor stood at the window of the human space station, watching ships come and go. He had been here for 2 weeks now, recovering from his injuries while Jake and Lisa worked to find new contracts. The station was called Gateway 7, and it orbited a small moon at the edge of human territory. Everything about this place confused Vex's Thor. The humans moved through the corridors with purpose, but they also stopped to talk to each other. They touched each other on the shoulder or arm when they spoke. Among his own people, such contact only happened during formal ceremonies or business transactions. Here, it seemed to happen all the time. A young human approached him. It was Danny Park, one of the medical technicians who had helped care for Vex Thor. Danny was short and thin, with dark hair and an eager expression. "Hey Vex Thor," Danny said with a big smile. "How are you feeling today?" "I am well," Vex Thor replied. "My injuries are healing." "That's great." Danny seemed genuinely happy about this. "Listen, we're having a party tonight in the recreation area. You should come." "A party?" Vex Thor knew the word, but didn't understand why humans had so many of them. "What is the occasion?" "Vex?" Danny's smile grew even bigger. "I passed my medical certification exam. After 2 tries, I finally got it." Vex Thor tilted his head, confused. "You failed twice before?" "Yeah," Danny said, not seeming ashamed at all. "The first time I wasn't ready. The second time, I just had a bad day. But everyone here helped me study, and I kept trying." Third time's the charm, right? And they celebrate this? Vex Thor asked. You achieved the minimum requirement for your position after multiple failures? Danny laughed. When you put it that way, it sounds pretty unimpressive. But yeah, they're proud of me. And I'm proud of myself. It was hard, but I didn't give up. After Danny left, Vex's Thor thought about this conversation. In Zenthari society, failing once meant you were removed from your position. Someone more capable would take your place. There were no second chances, and certainly no celebrations for eventually meeting basic requirements. Yet these humans seemed to value the struggle and the persistence more than the success itself. That evening, Vex Thor went to the party. The recreation area was filled with people, music, and laughter. Danny stood in the center, receiving congratulations from everyone. They brought him gifts, small things like books and food, but Danny acted like each one was precious. Admiral Kate Collins, the commander of the entire station, was there too. She was a tall woman, with gray hair and a strong presence. She raised a glass, and everyone became quiet. To Danny Park, she said loudly, who proved that persistence and heart matter more than perfect scores. We're proud to have you on our team. Everyone cheered and drank. Danny's eyes were wet with tears, but he was smiling. Vex Thor watched all of this with fascination. The Admiral, one of the most powerful humans in this sector, had taken time from her duties to attend a party for a junior technician who had simply done his job. Over the following days, Vex Thor observed more. He saw crew members helping each other with tasks that weren't their responsibility. He saw them sharing food and resources without keeping careful records of who owed what to whom. He saw them comfort each other when they were sad or worried. One day, he witnessed something that truly puzzled him. The entire station stopped working for 1 hour. All the crew gathered in the main hall. Admiral Collins stood at the front, and behind her was a large image of a woman Vex Thor didn't recognize. 6 months ago today, we lost Rachel Martinez, the Admiral said. Her voice was sad but strong. She was a friend, a colleague, and a valuable member of this station. She died saving 3 people during the reactor accident. Today, we remember her sacrifice and celebrate her life. People stood up one by one to share stories about Rachel. They talked about her jokes, her kindness, her skills as an engineer. Some people cried. Others smiled at the memories. The entire station mourned someone who had been dead for half a year. After the ceremony, Vex Thor approached Admiral Collins. Excuse me, Admiral. May I ask a question? Of course, she said, wiping her eyes. Why do you honor someone who is dead? She can no longer contribute to the station. She provides no value anymore. The Admiral looked at him with an expression Vex's Thor couldn't read. Rachel provided immense value by giving her life for others. But even if she hadn't died heroically, we would still honor her memory. She was part of our family. When someone is part of your family, you don't forget them just because they're gone. Family, Vex Thor repeated. Family isn't always about blood, the Admiral said. Sometimes it's about the bonds we choose to make, the people we decide to stand with, the people we trust with our lives. That's family too. That night, Vex Thor began writing a report. He had been observing humans for weeks now, and he needed to document what he was learning. His people needed to understand these strange creatures. He wrote about their illogical kindness, their wasteful celebrations, their inefficient emotional attachments. But as he wrote, he realized these things weren't weaknesses. They were something else, something his people didn't have. The humans called it loyalty. But it was more than just staying with an employer or following orders. It was deeper. It was caring about others, even when it cost you something. It was celebrating their successes as if they were your own. It was remembering them even after they were gone. A few days later, Danny Park found Vex's Thor in the observation area. Hey, You've been watching us a lot. Writing notes. Are we that interesting? Yes, Vexthor said honestly. Your species is very different from mine. How so? Danny asked, sitting down beside him. You care about each other in ways that seem illogical. You sacrifice for each other. You celebrate small victories. You mourn long after loss. In my culture, these things do not happen. Danny was quiet for a moment. That sounds lonely. Lonely? Vexthor hadn't considered this word before. Yeah. I mean, if nobody cares about you beyond what you can do for them, if nobody celebrates with you or mourns with you, that seems really lonely. Don't you ever want someone to just be happy that you exist? Vexthor thought about this. In his entire life, no one had ever expressed happiness at his mere existence. His value was always measured by his work, his contracts, his contributions. When he had been injured and floating in space, he had assumed he would die because he could no longer provide value to anyone. But Jake Morrison had saved him anyway. Not because of a contract. Not because Vexthor was useful. Simply because Vexthor was alive and needed help. I think, Vexthor said slowly, that I am beginning to understand why humans do these things. You build connections that go beyond usefulness. These connections make you stronger. Danny smiled. Exactly. When everyone has your back, you can do amazing things. When you know people care about you, you want to be better. Not just for yourself, but for them too. That's what loyalty really means. Vexthor nodded. He was starting to see it now. The humans weren't being inefficient or illogical. They were investing in something more valuable than money or resources. They were investing in each other, and that investment paid returns that could not be measured in credits or contracts. He continued his report. But now his tone was different. He wrote about the strength he saw in human bonds, the power of their loyalty, the way they lifted each other up and caught each other when they fell. His people needed to know about this. The galaxy needed to know about this. Because if the humans could do so much with loyalty alone, imagine what they could do with resources and technology to match. Vexthor looked out at the stars and thought about Jake Morrison, who had lost money to save a stranger. He thought about Danny Park, who was celebrated for never giving up. He thought about Admiral Collins, who led thousands but still took time to honor one person. These humans were special, and Vexthor was determined to understand why. The alarm that woke Gateway 7 was different from the usual alerts. This one was urgent, loud, and made everyone stop what they were doing. Vexthor was in the medical bay when it happened. He saw Danny Park's face go pale as he listened to his communicator. What is wrong? Vexthor asked. The Kryn Empire is here, Danny said quietly. 3 warships just entered our space. They're demanding we hand over Greg Torres. Vexthor knew about the Kryn. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were aggressive, powerful, and they didn't make empty threats. If they brought 3 warships, they meant business. Who is Greg Torres? Vexthor asked. He's a merchant who arrived here 3 months ago. Nice guy. He trades in ship parts and supplies. Within an hour, everyone on the station knew the situation. The Kryn claimed that Greg Torres had stolen military secrets and sold them to their enemies. They had evidence, they said. Video recordings, transaction records, everything. They gave Gateway 7 24 hours to hand over Torres, or they would attack the station. Vexthor made his way to the command center. He wanted to see how humans handled a crisis. Admiral Collins stood at the center of the room, surrounded by screens and advisors. Greg Torres was there too, a middle-aged man with worried eyes and hands that wouldn't stop shaking. I didn't do it, Torres said for what must have been the 10th time. I swear, Admiral. Someone set me up. My old partner, Ryan Blake. He had access to all my accounts and files. He must have framed me. The evidence looks pretty solid, one of the advisors said. Video shows Torres accessing a Kryn military database. Transaction records show payments to known Kryn enemies. But those could be faked, Torres insisted. Blake is smart enough to do it. He wanted my trade routes. He wanted my contacts. This is the perfect way to get rid of me. Admiral Collins was quiet, studying the data on her screens. Finally, she looked up at Torres. Do you have any proof that Blake framed you? No, Torres admitted. But I'm telling the truth. I would never betray anyone like that. It's not who I am. The Admiral turned to her advisors. What are our options? We hand him over, the security chief said. 3 Kryn warships against our station. We wouldn't last an hour. We have 3,000 people here, Admiral. We can't risk all of them for one man. The Stepler, 70s, especially when that one man might actually be guilty, another advisor added. If the evidence is real, then Torres is a criminal. Why should we protect him? Speaking, if the evidence is real, with 2017 real, why should we protect him? Admiral Collins looked at Torres again. You understand what they're saying? The logical choice is to hand you over. Save the station. Save 3,000 lives. Torres nodded, tears in his eyes. I understand. But I'm innocent. I know you don't know me well. I've only been here 3 months. But I'm telling you the truth. I believe you, the Admiral said quietly. The room went silent. Everyone stared at her. Admiral, the security chief said carefully. With respect, we can't risk the entire station on belief. I know, Collins said. But we also can't hand over one of our people without even trying to find the truth. That's not who we are. That's not what humans do. She turned to her team. We have 24 hours. Get me Amy Chen from intelligence. Tell her I need the best investigation of her life. Find me proof that Torres was framed. And someone get our civilian ships ready. If this goes bad, we'll need to evacuate. The meeting ended, and people scattered to their tasks. Vex Thor followed the Admiral as she left the command center. Admiral Collins, he said, may I speak with you? Walk with me, she said, heading down the corridor. I do not understand your decision, Vex Thor said. The logical choice is clear. 1 life for 3,000 lives. Why do you risk so much for someone who might be guilty? And the Admiral kept walking, her face tired. Because that's what loyalty means, Vex Thor. It means we don't give up on our people just because it's convenient. Torres says he's innocent. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. But he deserves a chance to prove it. He deserves to know that we'll fight for him. No. 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 Even if it means everyone dies? Even then, she said. Because if we give up on him without even trying, what does that say about us? Who would ever trust us again? Every person on this station needs to know that we have their back, no matter what. That's what makes us strong. News spread through the station quickly. Within hours, everyone knew that the Admiral had refused to hand over Torres. Vex Thor expected panic, fear, maybe even anger. Instead, he saw something else. He saw crew members volunteering to help with Amy Chen's investigation. He saw engineers preparing weapons and shields that the station hadn't used in years. He saw people going about their duties with determination instead of fear. Jake Morrison and Lisa Grant arrived back at the station that evening. Their ship, the Frontier Spirit, had been out on a cargo run. They docked and immediately came to find Vex's Thor. We heard what's happening, Jake said. We're staying. Staying? Vex Thor asked. Why? You could leave before the deadline. You could be safe. Lisa shook her head. This station gave us work when we needed it. These people are our friends. We're not running. Oh. Odo. But you barely know Greg Torres, Vex Thor said. Doesn't matter, Jake replied. He's one of us now. That makes him worth fighting for. Vex's Thor watched as more civilian ships arrived at the station. Traders, cargo haulers, small passenger vessels. All of them could have left. All of them could have found safety elsewhere. But they came back instead. They came back to stand with Gateway 7. By midnight, Amy Chen had made progress. She found evidence that Ryan Blake had met with Kryn agents several times. She found transaction records that didn't quite match up. But it wasn't enough. Amy Chen. Amy Chen. Amy Chen. Not yet. At 3 in the morning, Amy was following a lead in the lower levels of the station when someone attacked her. A Kryn agent had been hiding on the station, waiting to make sure Torres was captured. Amy fought back, but she was injured badly. Danny Park was the first responder. He rushed to the scene and found Amy bleeding on the floor. The Kryn agent tried to stop him, but Danny didn't hesitate. He threw himself at the agent, giving Amy time to trigger an alarm. Security arrived within minutes and captured the agent. Danny had a broken arm and some cuts, but he was alive. Amy was in critical condition, but stable. The Kryn agent's presence was the proof they needed. Under questioning, the agent confessed that Blake had hired the Kryn to frame Torres. The evidence was fake. Torres was innocent. When morning came, Admiral Collins sent a message to the Kryn warships. She had proof of Torres's innocence. She had one of their agents in custody, and she had a station full of people ready to fight if necessary. Vex Thor watched from the observation deck as the deadline approached. He saw the Kryn warships, massive and threatening. He saw the small civilian vessels that had gathered around Gateway 7, forming a protective shield. He saw humans preparing to defend their home and their people. "This is insane," he said to Jake, who stood beside him. "Your species is going to start a war over one person, over loyalty, over trust." Jake smiled. "Maybe. But you know what? Every person on this station knows that if they were in Torres's position, we would do the same for them. That knowledge, that trust, that's worth more than any peace treaty or trade agreement. Your species is not the strongest in the galaxy," Vex Thor said. "You do not have the best technology or the most resources. But you have something else. Something I have never seen before." "What's that?" Jake asked. "You have each other," Vex Thor said. "Truly. Completely. And that makes you formidable." The Kryn warships held their position for another hour. Then, slowly, they turned and left. They weren't willing to start a war over one person, especially when other species had started to take notice of the situation. Gateway 7 had won. Not through superior weapons or clever tactics, but through loyalty and the refusal to abandon one of their own. As the threat passed, the station erupted in celebration. But Vex Thor wasn't celebrating. He was thinking. He was understanding. And he was preparing his report for the Zenthari Council. The humans were more than they appeared. Much more. And the galaxy needed to know. The medical bay was busier than usual. Amy Chen lay in one bed, recovering from her injuries. Danny Park was in another bed beside her, his broken arm in a cast and his face covered with bruises. But both of them were smiling. Vex's Thor stood at the doorway, watching as crew members came to visit. They brought flowers, food, and small gifts. They told Amy and Danny that they were heroes. They thanked them for their bravery. Some people even cried while expressing their gratitude. Admiral Collins entered the room carrying 2 small boxes. Everyone became quiet. "Amy Chen," the Admiral said formally, "your investigation saved Greg Torres and possibly prevented a war. Your courage under attack was exemplary. On behalf of Gateway 7, I award you the Station Medal of Honor." She opened the first box, revealing a small silver medal. She pinned it to Amy's hospital gown, and everyone in the room applauded. Amy's eyes filled with tears. "I was just doing my job," Amy said softly. "No," the Admiral replied. "You went far beyond your job. You put yourself in danger to find the truth. You never gave up, even when time was running out. That's not just doing a job. That's being a hero. Then the Admiral turned to Danny. Danny Park, you've had quite a month. First, you passed your medical certification after working harder than most people would. Then, you risked your life to save Amy when she was attacked. Your actions show what it truly means to be part of this crew. She opened the second box and pinned another medal to Danny's gown. You are no longer a junior medical technician. Effective immediately, you are promoted to senior medical technician. And I am recommending you for a position at the Central Medical Facility on Earth. Danny couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears running down his face. Vex Thor watched all of this with growing understanding. Just weeks ago, these humans had celebrated Danny for simply passing an exam. Now they were celebrating him again for his bravery. They didn't see these as separate events. They saw them as parts of who Danny was. A person who never gave up. A person who helped others. A person worth celebrating. After the ceremony, Vex Thor found Jake Morrison in the station's cafe. Jake was eating a sandwich and reading reports on his tablet. May I join you? Vex Thor asked. Sure, Jake said, gesturing to the empty seat. Want some food? The sandwiches here are pretty good. Vex Thor sat down. I have been observing your species for many weeks now. I believe I am finally beginning to understand. Ah. Vex Thor. Understand what? Jake asked, taking a bite of his sandwich. Why you do things that seem illogical. Why you sacrifice for others. Why you celebrate small victories and mourn long after loss. Why you risk everything for loyalty. Jake put down his sandwich. And what's your conclusion? Humans don't see loyalty as a transaction, Vex Thor said. You see it as an investment. When you help someone, you're not expecting immediate payment. You're building a bond. When you celebrate someone's success, you're not being wasteful. You're making them stronger. When you refuse to abandon someone, you're not being foolish. You're showing everyone that they can trust you. That's pretty much it, Jake agreed. We take care of each other because we know others will take care of us. Not because we have to, but because we want to. But it's more than that, Vex Thor continued. The way you reward loyalty is what makes it powerful. You don't just pay people more money. You give them respect, recognition, belonging. You make them feel valued in ways that go beyond material wealth, Jake nodded. Money is important, sure, but it's not everything. Knowing that people care about you, that they respect you, that they'll stand with you when things get hard, that's worth more than any paycheck. Vex Thor thought about this. In Zenthari society, everything had a price. Everything could be bought or sold. But human loyalty couldn't be bought. It had to be earned. And once earned, it was incredibly strong. I need to tell you something, Vex Thor said. I have been writing reports about humans, sending them to my people, telling them what I've learned. I figured, Jake said with a smile. You've been watching us pretty carefully. I hope you are not offended. Not at all, Jake said. Actually, I think it's good. Your people should know about us. The whole galaxy should know about us. We're not perfect, but we try to do right by each other. That's worth sharing. Over the next few days, the station slowly returned to normal. Greg Torres, cleared of all charges, was overwhelmed with gratitude. Admiral, I have 6 cargo ships in my fleet, Torres said. I want to dedicate 3 of them to supporting Gateway 7. Free deliveries, supply runs, whatever you need. You believed in me when you had no reason to. You risked everything for me. I can never fully repay that, but I want to try. The Admiral tried to refuse, saying it wasn't necessary. But Torres insisted. Please, let me do this. It's not just about paying you back. It's about being part of something bigger. You showed me what real loyalty looks like. I want to be part of that. Vex's Thor witnessed this conversation. He saw how Torres wasn't just grateful. He was changed. The experience had transformed him from a simple merchant into someone who understood what it meant to be part of a human community. Lisa Grant found Vex Thor in the observation area later that day. She sat down beside him, looking tired but happy. "So, what do you think of us crazy humans now?" she asked. "I think," Vex Thor said carefully, "that your species has discovered something the rest of the galaxy has missed. You have found a way to make individuals more valuable together than they are apart. And you have created a culture that rewards the bonds between people, not just individual achievement." "That's a fancy way of putting it," Lisa said with a laugh. "I am writing my final report," Vex Thor continued. "I will tell my people that humans are not the strongest species. You are not the fastest or the smartest. Your technology is not the most advanced. But you have something more valuable than all of those things." "What's that?" "You have each other," Vex Thor said. "And you have shown me that loyalty, true loyalty, is the most powerful force in the galaxy. It cannot be bought. It cannot be forced. It can only be earned through consistent care, respect, and sacrifice. And once earned, it creates bonds stronger than any weapon or any contract." Lisa was quiet for a moment. "You know, I never really thought about it that way. It's just how we are. It's just what feels right. That is what makes it so powerful," Vex Thor said. "You do not calculate it. You do not question it. You simply do it. And that consistency, that reliability, that is what makes humans special." That evening, there was another party. Not just for Danny and Amy this time, but for everyone. The entire station gathered to celebrate their survival, their unity, and their loyalty to each other. Vex Thor stood at the edge of the celebration, watching humans dance, laugh, and enjoy each other's company. He saw Jake and Lisa talking with Torres. He saw Danny and Amy, still recovering but smiling. He saw Admiral Collins moving through the crowd, speaking with everyone from the highest officers to the lowest maintenance workers, and he finally understood. This wasn't just a party. This was a reinforcement of bonds. This was humans reminding each other why they stood together. This was the reward for loyalty, given freely and received gratefully. His tablet buzzed. A message from the Zenthari Council. They had received his reports. They wanted more information. They wanted to understand these humans better. They had Rond. They wanted to understand these humans better. Vex's Thor smiled, something he had learned from watching humans. He began typing his response. There was so much to tell them. So much they needed to know. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their ships or their technology. It was their unwavering loyalty to each other. And that loyalty would change everything. 3 Kryn warships appeared in space near Gateway 7. But this time, they weren't alone. 6 other alien vessels had arrived as well. Ships from different species, different cultures, all drawn by reports of what had happened here. Vex Thor stood in the command center with Admiral Collins. His reports to the Zenthari Council had spread throughout the galaxy faster than he expected. Other species wanted to see these strange humans for themselves. They wanted to witness this loyalty everyone was talking about. "This is unexpected," the Admiral said, watching the ships on her screens. "What are they all doing here?" "They came to observe," Vex Thor explained. "My reports about human loyalty have caused great interest. Many species want to see if what I wrote is true." The Kryn commander's face appeared on the main screen. He looked uncomfortable. "Gateway 7. We have come to formally apologize for the incident involving Greg Torres. Our investigation confirms that your findings were correct. Torres was innocent, and our agent acted without proper authorization." Admiral Collins remained calm. "Apology accepted, Commander. We appreciate your honesty. There is more," the Kryn commander continued. "The Council of 9 wishes to open trade negotiations with humanity. They believed that a species capable of such loyalty would make reliable partners. Before the Admiral could respond, another screen activated. A Zenthari diplomat appeared, and Vex Thor stood straighter. This was High Merchant Krell, one of the most powerful members of the Zenthari collective. Admiral Collins. I am here to discuss a matter of business with Captain Jake Morrison. Is he available? Jake was called to the command center. He arrived quickly, looking confused. You wanted to see me? Captain Morrison, Krell said formally. You saved the life of Vex Thor when there was no contract, no obligation, no profit. This action has been studied by our council. We have concluded that humans operate on a system of loyalty that can be more reliable than our traditional contracts. Okay, Jake said slowly. What does that mean? It means we wish to offer you a trade contract. The Zenthari Collective needs someone to transport high-value goods through dangerous territory. We need someone we can trust completely. Someone who will not abandon their duty when things become difficult. We believe humans fit this requirement. Jake looked at Admiral Collins, then at Vex Thor, then back at the screen. What kind of contract are we talking about? Krell named a figure that made Jake's eyes go wide. It was 10 times what he had lost by saving Vex Thor. It was enough money to buy a new ship, to hire a crew, to never worry about finances again. I don't know what to say, Jake stammered. Say yes, Captain. Vex Thor said with a smile. You earned this. You saved my life when you gained nothing from it. Now, you receive the reward for your loyalty. Lisa, who had followed Jake to the command center, grabbed his arm. Jake, this is incredible. But more surprises came. The screen split to show multiple faces, representatives from different species, all wanting to speak with Gateway 7. The Aelori, a peaceful species known for their arts and culture, wanted to establish an embassy on Gateway 7. Your demonstration of loyalty and community has inspired us, their ambassador said. We wish to learn from you. The Draxian Federation, a military power, offered a defense pact. A species that fights for one person will fight fiercely for their allies. We want humanity on our side. One by one, offers came in. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, military alliances, technology sharing. Species that had never paid attention to humanity suddenly wanted to be their partners. Admiral Collins listened to all of it with a calm expression, but Vex Thor could see the surprise in her eyes. Humans had just jumped forward decades in galactic politics, all because they refused to abandon one innocent person. The next day, a special ceremony was held in the main hall of Gateway 7. Greg Torres stood at the front, looking nervous. I don't deserve all this attention, he said. You just did what was right. And that's exactly why we're doing this. Admiral Collins replied. She held up a tablet. Greg, you offered to dedicate 3 of your ships to support this station. We appreciate that offer, but we have a different proposal. Torres looked confused. We want to hire your entire fleet as the official supply line for Gateway 7 and all human stations in this sector. Full contract, proper payment, everything legal and fair. You'll make good money, and we'll have reliable support. Torres stared at her. You're offering me a major contract? After everything that happened? You were loyal to us by telling the truth, the Admiral said. You stood by your principles, even when it looked like you would die for them. That's exactly the kind of partner we want. Torres accepted, his hands shaking as he signed the digital contract. The crew applauded, and Vex Thor realized he was applauding too. He had learned this gesture from humans. It felt good to celebrate someone else's success. The ceremonies continued. Danny Park received formal notification of his promotion and his acceptance to the Central Medical Facility on Earth. He cried, hugged everyone in reach, and gave a short speech about never giving up. Amy Chen was promoted to Chief Intelligence Officer and given command of her own department. She thanked the Admiral, the crew, and especially Danny for saving her life. But the biggest surprise came at the end. A representative from the Galactic Council arrived, an elder being from the Vortan species. The Vortans were one of the oldest and most respected species in the galaxy. They rarely involved themselves in the affairs of younger species. The Vortan's hologram appeared in the main hall, and everyone fell silent. "I am Elder Saros of the Galactic Council," the being said. Its voice was old and wise. "I observed the recent events involving Gateway 7 with great interest. I watched as humans risked their lives for one person. I watched as they refused to take the easy path. I watched as they demonstrated a level of loyalty that is rare in this galaxy." Admiral Collins stepped forward. "Elder Saros, we are honored by your presence. The Galactic Council has been debating humanity's application for membership for several years," Saros continued. "Some members argued that humans were too young, too primitive, too emotional. They said humanity needed more time to mature." Vex Thor felt his breathing stop. He knew what was coming. "But I argued differently," Saros said. "I argued that a species capable of such loyalty, such care for each other, such willingness to sacrifice for what is right, such a species is exactly what the galaxy needs. Technology can be learned, resources can be acquired, but loyalty, true loyalty, is rare and precious." The elder paused, and the entire station waited. "Therefore, the Galactic Council formally invites humanity to join as a full member species. You will have a seat at the table. You will have a voice in galactic affairs. You will have the rights and responsibilities of a member species." The hall erupted in cheers. People hugged each other, cried, and celebrated. Humanity had just taken a massive step forward in galactic society, jumping past centuries of typical diplomatic progression. Later that evening, Vex Thor sat with Jake and Lisa in the cafe. The celebrations were still happening throughout the station. All Rexes, but they had found a quiet corner. "I can't believe all of this happened because I picked up a distress signal," Jake said, shaking his head. "I just wanted to help someone in trouble." "That is exactly the point," Vex Thor said. "You helped because it was right, not because you expected rewards. But the rewards came anyway. That is the power of loyalty. When you invest in others without expecting return, the returns come in ways you never imagined." "What will you do now?" Lisa asked Vex Thor. "I am staying," Vex Thor said. "The Zenthari Council has appointed me as liaison to humanity. I will help my people understand your ways. I will help build bridges between our species." "You're part of the crew now," Jake said with a smile. "If you're staying, you should join us on the frontier spirit. We could use someone with your knowledge and connections." Vex Thor felt something he had never experienced before. Belonging. Acceptance. Not because of what he could provide, but because of who he was. "I would like that very much," he said. Over the following weeks, more changes came to Gateway 7. New species opened embassies. Trade increased dramatically. Human technology began advancing rapidly as other species shared their knowledge. But the most important change was harder to see. Other species started copying human practices. They started celebrating small victories. They started taking care of their injured and remembering their dead. They started building bonds of loyalty instead of just signing contracts. Vex Thor wrote his final report to the Zenthari Council. It was simple and direct. Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. They are not the smartest or the most advanced. But they have discovered something we all missed. They understand that individuals working together with true loyalty are stronger than any army of isolated workers. They have shown that caring for each other, celebrating each other, and standing by each other creates bonds that cannot be broken by threats or bribes. My recommendation is clear. Invest in human loyalty. Earn their trust. Become their partners. Because a human who considers you loyal will move stars for you. They will risk everything for you. They will never abandon you. But remember this warning. Betray a human's loyalty, and you will face something fiercer than any military force. You will face a species that never forgets and never stops coming. Humanity's loyalty is both their greatest strength and their most dangerous weapon. The galaxy is changing because of them. We can change with them, or we can be left behind. I choose to change. Vex Thor sent the report and closed his tablet. Through the window, he could see the frontier spirit being prepared for its next journey. Jake and Lisa were there, checking systems and loading supplies. They waved at him, and he waved back. For the first time in his life, Vex Thor understood what it meant to have a family. Not a family of blood, but a family of choice. A family built on loyalty, trust, and care. He left his quarters and headed to the ship. His crew was waiting. His friends were waiting. His family was waiting. And as Gateway 7 grew smaller behind them and the stars stretched out ahead, Vex Thor realized that he had learned the most important lesson of all. Loyalty wasn't about logic or profit or efficiency. It was about connection. It was about caring for others as much as you cared for yourself. It was about knowing that you were never alone. That was the human way. And now, thanks to their example, it was becoming the galaxy's way, too. The future was bright. And it was built on loyalty. The kind of loyalty only humans truly understood. The kind of loyalty that changed everything.